Oh, for fuck's sakes. I'm an idiot. Stupid. Okay, so what happened? Well, about a month ago, I opened my fat mouth and I said, so I'm at the point where I just got to put this thing out. So next Friday, it is released. And I'll be honest, I had it mixed, mastered, and uploaded, but DistroKid missed my release date. So like most musicians, I use DistroKid as a distributor to get my music on streaming platforms, but they like to gatekeep control. They've price gated the ability to pick your release date into the Musician Plus package, but I thought that the price was negligible, so I upgraded. Oh, great, that's awesome. In an ideal world, I'd be able to upload my album, pick the release date, and it would be on streaming platforms that day, right? DistroKid can guarantee when they submit it to the online platform, but they can't guarantee when it will be on the online platform because of processing. And we will get to processing very shortly. So my album was scheduled to be on streaming platforms Friday, January 31st, but it didn't end up on streaming platforms until Monday, February 3rd. And I was super excited to hear it when I heard it. I was going to call the couple days, just a loss. But then I put it on and And man, would I love to blame DistroKid for that one, but that's on me. So, let's take a brief history of mastering music. So, I learned to master music during the loudness wars. And what that means is that you were pushing the limiter as close to 0 decibels as you possibly could without peaking, which is how I mastered my album. One problem though. Music streaming platforms have introduced something called normalization. This means that regardless of how you master your album, it's going to be processed after you upload it because streaming platforms want everything to sound consistent on their platform, which is understandable.
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
If you master your album to maximize for loudness, these streaming platforms are going to turn your album down a lot. So in a nutshell, that's why my album sounded really quiet when I put it up. That's on me. So I took the time to read the documentation, study YouTube videos, and practiced, and now I think I got it right. At least I hope so. Now, I say all of that to say this. As of right now, my album is uploaded and scheduled to release on March 7th, 2025. Look, if it's not there, you can blame DistroKid because I am not touching this album again. It's been 10 years. I need this off my plate. But with that, I thought it would be a cool idea to talk to my collaborator, A. Woods, about the process we went through to create this album. So, hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Well, that's great. Glad you
How
could.
are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty excited that this is coming out next week, finally.
After attempting to put it out, what was that, a month or two ago? And
yeah. There's a whole precursor to this part of the video that is in the video we're working on about that. So
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, 10 years. What a long time.
I mean, it's a little bit longer than that, isn't it?
Probably, yeah, a little bit longer. I've just been saying 10 years because I think it's the easiest way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has more impact than if you're like, well, 12 years, 13 years.
Yeah, like I worked on this for a decade, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got a couple questions for you that I sent over, but I figure it'd be best if I just straight up asked you and then you answered them. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
More natural.
Yeah. So are you aware that in all walks of my life, you're my longest collaborator? Like even professionally, I haven't worked with somebody as long as you.
I'm aware now. No, I think I think I could say the same thing.
Okay. And
I'm trying to think back.
Yeah.
Because we started working together 2006 or 2000. I think it was probably 2006, and then we recorded the first song together in 2007. I think.
Yeah, and listening back to that,
somewhere around there.
Listening back to that today, are you proud of that first release?
Yeah, okay. I think I like it.
It's fun.
I think it turned out.
We had fun with it. Is what I'll say.
It doesn't sound as bad as you might expect it to, given how little I think either of us really knew about beat making, recording, mixing. Um, Microphones have come a long way since then.
To be honest, I'm still using the exact same microphone I used back then. Believe
Really?
it or not. Yes, I am. This whole
I have a different one, but I think the one I use now I got in like 2011, so it's still pretty old.
Okay. But let's get on to this album. So the process, as I remember it, was that I had a lot of these ideas in my head and these thoughts that we successfully got out on the album. And feel free if you don't remember this, because we're going back quite a ways. That's fine. But for me, it seemed like I was trying to get these ideas out of my head, and you would sift through these rants that we would have over like Facebook Messenger or whatever and try to bring them to life. But from your perspective, what was the process like, and how did that change song to song?
I don't specifically remember rants or anything like that, but it sounds legit. It sounds like our work style. I don't specifically recall for this. What I do recall, I remember this album started as a different album or something different. Do you remember that? It was like, what did you call it? Like,
so it
Business
was called
and Pleasure or something.
It was
like
it was supposed to be a double disc
like
album that had two stories that intertwined, but I just couldn't make it work. So I thought that I'd focus on the thing that really was affecting me at that time, and to be honest, it's still affecting me today, which is the job market, right? Like it's been a, and I was having a really tough time back then. So I wanted to create a story that mirrored somewhat Macbeth a little bit, where, you know, like power corrupts, and that's what we came to. It started with that early frustration that I had in my career, and it evolved into this story-driven album, which was loosely inspired by Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick.
Yeah, I remember. I feel like we maybe did a few tracks that were for the other side of what was going to be that double album first.
Yeah, we did.
I seem to recall like that was where it started, and there were some good ones. The one I always remember, I think, was it called "She Belonged to Him"?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
And I liked how. I know that's not on this album, but I thought that one came together really well with the beat that we kind of decided on and the song itself. And there were a couple other ones, but that one sticks out. And I was definitely disappointed when you pivoted to more to just this, and that one kind of fell to the wayside. But
well, you never know. I am going through my old catalog. It might see the light of day, right?
I hope it gets resurrected. And some of those other ones, because I know there were a few, and I can't.
So there was one
put my mind on them exactly.
There was one called Cognac Confessions.
Oh yeah,
that one I really thought came together well, which was loosely inspired by it's a Drake song off of Take Care, I believe, and I thought we did a really good job of creating something similar, but not exactly copying what he did, right? And there was that one, She Belonged to Him, which that had no inspiration. It was more so like what was going on in my life and the time in my relationship world, where every single girl I seemed to interact with had a significant other, and I was like their just in case guy. So that was that was really what I was going through at the time, and then I made it more interesting, more captivating as a song. And those are the two that I specifically remember. I can't remember the other one. I think there was one called Rooftop Material, now that I'm thinking about it, which is that's a whole other conversation I need to have, because there's a story behind that song. But
I bet.
yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that is true. It did start out as a different project than it ended up being, and I feel like that's kind of normal for the creative process as things shift over time, right? Especially in a project that was made over a decade period.
Yeah, just for context, the last thing that I put out, which was, what was that? Pretty Blank Spiral Daydream. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
I think that I put that out in 2012. That was the same kind of thing. Is like it started here,
Mm-hmm.
and it ended up over here, and there's, multiple versions of each song, and songs that were started and never finished, or finished but didn't kind of like fit with it, and so it's very, very kind of the same way. I remember the process of making this one. I feel like, I guess I don't remember exactly, but I feel like you started recording on other beats, right? Or like you said that that one was inspired by a Drake song, and I think maybe you even might have recorded on an instrumental of that, or in other cases an instrumental of something, and then gave me an acapella, and then I would start making a beat around it. And I think there's a few of these that also on this album that had multiple versions of just like the beat evolving and changing.
Oh yeah. I remember the one that sticks out to me that I remember the most was "Fuck You, Pay Me," which I recorded over "Picasso Baby" by Jay-Z. And that one, I remember it really messed me up at the time, because when you made the beat, there was something weird about the timing. Like, it was a little bit different than Picasso Baby. So when I tried to re-record over "Fuck You, Pay Me," I just couldn't hit it properly. So I had to record over Picasso Baby and then bounce the vocals to the working session that we had. Thankfully with this one I figured it out, so I just recorded over the beat that you made. But yeah. And there's another one, there's a song that never even made it to this album. It was actually a summary of like what it was like to work on this project for however long it was, but so many things changed in my life from when I recorded that to now that it just didn't make sense. Like there's a part of the verse where, I'm like thanking my dad and all that other stuff, and he's not even around to hear it anymore, right? Like that's just the reality of this project for me anyways.
Yeah, like that song and these other ones. Well, I mean, you said some of the other ones may have a life in the world at some point, but even like ones that were specifically cut or changed just from this kind of version of the album, are those gonna come out just randomly? Are you gonna release a didn't make the cut or
no? I think I'm gonna, if something comes out, it's going to be repurposed as either just like a loose song that comes out, like
sure,
or
like
it'll fit into another project, right? Because like I have another project on the go right now that I'm working on, and that's it. It's kind of like I want this one out into the world so that people can experience it, to free up me to work on other interests that I have musically, right? Not that I'm like just trying to push this one off. It's really important to me, but I feel like after so long, I can't focus on it anymore, right? Like, what am I gonna do? Like, remix and master.
You could spend forever trying to perfect it.
Yeah,
it's never going to happen.
So,
and I think after
Go ahead.
10, 12 years, I don't think the term pushing it out or forcing it out, I don't think that applies anymore.
No, no,
I
you're
think
probably
after a
right.
certain amount of time, everybody's just like, yeah, you spent that long on it. We get it. You're not just throwing it out there.
Fair enough. So moving on, what if there's anything you could have done differently during this project? What would it have been?
Oh, finished it sooner.
That's on me though. I wish I could have did that for you, but I'll take it on the chin.
Mainly, mainly it's on you, but I know there were times where I feel like as we worked on this, there were certainly times where you were really focused on it and doing a lot at the time, and I wasn't matching that
That's fair.
time wise. And I think that's kind of in our history, kind of always a thing. Life happens, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a period there, I think, where for almost a year or more, where I didn't really do any kind of music, maybe even almost up to 2 years, where I kind of just wasn't doing anything. I wasn't even really making beats or anything. I just kind of stopped doing it for whatever. And I can't even remember if there was a, kind of an instigator for that or why that happened. But yeah, I mean, that would probably, the only thing I would change is maybe from my end, putting more focus into it and maybe pushing you to get it out faster by matching, that kind of work ethic or energy when it was there. Because I feel like, like if I'm putting out working on something and I'm really into it and just really like in the zone, working on it. And if I'm working with somebody else and they're not kind of feeling the same way, it can be hard to kind of keep that energy, or it kind of kills it in a way, I think, sometimes. So I feel like I'm maybe a little bit guilty of kind of killing the momentum at times. That's what I would change.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. I mean, there's certain, and so it's hard too when it's not like specifically your project. Like I get it, it is your project. We worked on this together. You created the sound behind it, but the name on it is mine, right? Like,
right.
And it wasn't your inception or your idea, so it is kind of hard to match that momentum sometimes, and also put out the urgency that the other person is, especially in our situation, because you're in a completely different country, right? It's not like we were working together in person where you can feed off my energy and I can feed off yours. You have to manufacture that energy, right? So I get what you're saying, which it's a tough task to have, and certainly a situation that we're gonna have to work through with collaborative efforts that we have in the future, right?
Yep,
is just really what it is. So let's move on here to a question that could just end this call right away. No, I'm joking. But what's the most frustrating part of working with me?
That's a tough one.
And
not because I want to spare your feelings. No, I don't know. I don't know if I can really. I was going to say pinpoint, but that makes it sound like there's a ton of stuff and I can't like pick something, but it's not really that. It's, I mean, we've been collaborating for almost 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years.
And certainly right, there had to be times where we disagreed, or you know, I feel like there were probably times um, where maybe I even got like annoyed or upset about something,
Yeah.
but it was never anything like significant where like to this day where I'm like, yeah, that one time when you said, you know, I don't like these drums, and I got super mad and threw my monitor across the room or whatever, you know. I don't think there's any moments like that. We never had any really big kind of things.
Yeah, we never
like
had any
that. So
blowouts or anything like that.
maybe okay, here's maybe one, I'll say one frustrating thing, but it's not really frustration, is I think there were versions of these songs that we did years ago that I really liked. And maybe, you know, in my mind, I feel like we didn't even need to go beyond what those were. Like we could have rolled with those.
Yeah.
So it's not really a frustration, but I think that's one thing is sometimes um, you know, I'm just like, oh man, why are we re-recording or, you know, doing this again? It sounds great. I love it the way it is, you know? And I think very rarely, there's times where you've maybe asked for some changes to a beat or for something brand new, but I feel like that's an outlier situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
nowadays,
it's never like,
like,
oh, go ahead.
because I've ramped up my skills quite a lot from when we first started this. So nowadays, if I want something completely different, I'll just work it in, right? Which can open other frustrations as well. Like, why did you touch that part of it, right? But I
Yeah,
get,
well, and
go ahead.
I noticed on listening to some of these, like obviously you played around with the arrangement of on some of the beats, I think, and I can't remember which one it was specifically, but where, like, I think what was like the intro, you looped that and use it for the verse, and then maybe where I had it set up where it dropped for the verse, that became like where the hook started or something.
Oh, okay. Some
And
of that
I only
comes down to having to rebounce the files so many times and just not really remembering what the arrangement was either. So
and that's not a frustration or anything. Like
Yeah.
honestly, you know, make it work with fit it to what works with how you're making the song. And that's kind of what I know what the next question is like, what do I enjoy? You know, like working with you, is that it's kind of a free flowing exchange where, you know, I really like that you can find a beat that you like, that you have in your head, record to it, and then you feel comfortable passing that along to me and say, hey, make a beat around this, and then just kind of give me free reign to do whatever I want to do. And obviously, you know, if it's garbage, you don't like feed my ego and say, oh yeah, this is great, but really actually hate it.
yeah.
You know, like there's good feedback, and I know sometimes I'll do multiple versions and different kind of styles and stuff. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think kind of when I do that, there's times where that kind of kickstarts your creativity to add more or to change something like that. And I know there's a few times where I've kind of jumped in and said, hey, had this idea of some vocals to add or whatever. And I think like on Money.
Yeah, you fixed the chorus.
I think I just came up with the chorus. I was just like, hey, what about, this? And I think I sung it and sent it to you. And
you also added a
my
bridge.
recording of it was pretty terrible, but
It's still in there though, like because I think it adds something, like it adds more layers to it. But you also added the bridge on Mama's Trap, like you added that, and your vocals are what lives on that.
Yeah,
right?
at the end. Yeah, at the end of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I was trying to remember as I was listening to that today, because I know that's like an excerpt from.
Careful.
Another song.
Careful. I'm not.
I feel like
I'm not giving them writing credits. So.
Well, so what I was trying to figure out is, because I don't have any idea what that song is.
Yeah.
At this day, I can't remember if you. I can't remember if you gave me that song as like a reference for the beat, or where that came from, how it came to be, to have that.
Honestly, you added it. Like that's what I remember. I remember like we were talking about, I'm like, there's something missing here, and I'm like, I kind of want singing vocals at the end, and you added that.
Okay.
So
I, for the life of me, can't remember how I
I know the exact song because I've looked into it and I've heard the song a number of times, but and off camera we can talk about this in more detail, but I was
I know I've heard
that's
it.
a really good, like when I heard it I was like, that's a really good addition to this song because it fits really perfectly, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, to add to your point about like what you enjoy working with me about, I do like that, if you see a way to improve it, or you see a way to add something that maybe I wasn't considering, you're vocal about it. And that's one thing that I think is my favorite part about us working together, is we're not afraid to say we don't like something, or have a debate about something, or we don't shy away from conflict, I guess is what I'm getting at here. That I like that because I think it creates healthy collaboration. And another thing is that we came up with this kind of process to making a song where we want to know what the mood of that song needs to be, and I've adapted that beyond that to figure out what key the song needs to be in.
Okay.
So
you're a little bit beyond me, because I've started a little bit more, but for the longest time, like I was like, I don't key, it doesn't matter. I just go by ear. In recent years, I sometimes take more into account what the key is and stuff like that. Just because sometimes it makes it easier when you're trying to come up with a melody or whatever. So, like, me, I use a lot of pop up a lot of loops and samples and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And change those. So it can be a little more difficult when dealing with like key and figuring out the scale and stuff. At least initially it was. I'm getting a little better at it now.
Yeah. Well, there's tools
but still,
for that too, right? Like.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely use those.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then sometimes, if you're sampling a song that's like a major release, they just have the key out there, right?
Right.
But, I try and stay away from doing that now. But it is what it is with some of the songs on this project.
Well, so here's the really cool thing for the future. You can, and I've done this quite a bit and have kind of been building up a little catalog of my own.
Yeah.
Is they have the generative AI songs,
Oh yeah.
And so I've been using that to generate songs that sound like they are older or whatever kind of style, so that I can sample them, and it'll sound like, you're sampling records, but there's no, like, they're not copywritten records. They're not actually real songs that are out there that somebody else sang or came up with. So
yeah, for sure.
You can kind of have, fresh samples.
Yeah, that's what they
and
did.
Nobody else is going to have it. So
yeah, that's what they did for that BBL Drizzy song. That was straight up AI generated, and then Metro Boomin sampled it. But let's move on to the final question here. So you've heard this album a bunch of times. You mentioned you listened to it just before this call, and now that it's going out into the world, is this something that you were proud to be a part of?
Yeah, looking back at, we put a lot of work into it.
Oh, yeah, a ton.
It's kind of a release. It's good to know that it's done. We're saying it's done.
Mm-hmm.
That work resulted in something.
Yeah.
And my style, the way I make beats, has always kind of changed over time, and like I'm even using a different DAW than I was when we did these, when we made these, which isn't like that different. But there was a time, in the first few years when I started making beats. So let's say I started in like 2000, and by 2007, when I looked back at what I had done in the earlier years, it was like, oh, I'm not that proud of those beats. They weren't very good, Now in contrast, now I look back 10, 12 years at what I did here, and I'm like, wow, that was, what was my mind frame then? How do I get back into that? And maybe it's just, you record something and send it to me and say, hey, here's the vibe. Here's a key I think it should be in, and then I can go from there and
Well, I think saying it when you're working with somebody, I think saying mood, like this is what it needs to feel like. Here's what I want people to feel when they hear it is much easier than key. I say key for myself now because I know, G minor, it's like a very sad key. Like most sad songs are in G minor, right? But if working with you in the future, I would probably, we'd break it down and probably have a meeting prior to even working on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to do this. I will send you over the video when it's edited. Most of it is edited. I got to edit this part because there's probably some dead air that needs to come in. But yeah, look forward, March 7th. So that's when it's coming out.
Awesome.
All right.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. Thanks, man.
Bye.
See ya.